الله عنه قال نزل على رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم القرآن. The Quran was sent down upon the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم فتلاه عليهم زمانا. So he recited upon the Sahaba for a specific period of time. فقال يا رسول الله O Messenger of Allah لو قصصت علينا. O Messenger of Allah, if you were to tell us a story. فأنزل الله عز وجل ألف لام را تلك آيات الكتاب. The Surah Yusuf. So Allah sent down Surah Yusuf. فَتَلَاهُ عَلَيْهِمْ زَمَانًا. So he recited it upon them for a specific amount of time. Reported by Abi Hatim, بإسناد حسن, with a Hasan chain. وله عن المسعودي من أبو حاتم also, Ibn Abi Hatim also reported from Mas'udi, عن القاسم أن أصحاب رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ملوا ملة, that the Sahaba they got bored. فقال حدثنا يا رسول الله, O Messenger of Allah, narrate to us, relate to us. فنزلت الله نزل أحسن الحديث كتاب متشابها. Allah sends down the best of speech كتاب متشابها. ثم ملوا ملة, then they got bored again. فقالوا حدثنا يا رسول الله, O Messenger of Allah, relate to us or report to us. فأنزل الله عز وجل ألم يأن للذين آمنوا أن تخشع قلوبهم لذكر الله وما نزل من الحق. This narration is not authentic. This narration about that they got bored and asked the Prophet to relate to them, report from Mas'udi and Al-Qasim, it is not authentic from the Prophet ﷺ or the Sahaba. Then he says ورواه أبو عبيد عن بعد التابعين وفيه فإن طلبوا الحديث دلهم على القرآن. If they seek hadith, then indicate them upon the Quran, or indicate them towards the Quran. As for Sa'd ibn Malik, he is Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas. So Sa'd ibn Malik is Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas radiallahu anhu, Abu Ishaq az-Zuhri. He is one of the 10 who the Prophet ﷺ gave him glad tidings of paradise. And he was one of the first 7 to accept Islam. He is one of the first 7 to accept Islam. And he made hijrah to Medina before the Prophet ﷺ. And he was the first one to shoot an arrow in the path of Allah. He was the first one to shoot an arrow in the path of Allah. He witnessed Badr and that which is after it. And he was a horseman who was very courageous. He was a very courageous horseman. And due to him, or at his hands, Allah opened up the land of Persia. Allah opened up the land of Persia at his hands. And he was one who his dua was answered. His dua was answered. And he narrated from the Prophet much. And he was he was the last of the 10 to die. And him, radiallahu anh, at a stage in his life, he thought he was going to die. So he asked the Prophet ﷺ about inheritance, showing that you may think death is near, but you end up living longer. So he thought he was going to die earlier, but he ended up living. He was the last of the last 10 granted, given the glad tidings of paradise, to die. And he died in the year 55 after the Hijrah. So he thought he was going to die in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, whereas he even asked the Prophet ﷺ about inheritance. In that famous hadith, الثلث والثلث كثير, that 1/3 is too much, giving to other than the family members. But he died in the year 55 after the Hijrah, and some said before that. As for Ibn Abi Hatim, he is Al-Imam Al-Hafiz Al-Thabt Abdul Rahman ibn Al-Imam Muhammad Idris Al-Razi. He narrated, or he has many books in regards to beliefs, such as refutation upon Jahmiyyah, and he also has tafsir and hadith. And other than it, he was a scholar of Jarh wa Ta'dil and Ilal, the hidden defects in hadith. And he died in the year 327 after the Hijrah, at the age of 80 something years old. As for this hadith, then it is the encouragement to read the Quran and also pay concern to its recitation and taking it as an admonition. And the Shaykh here says, فَيَا أَيُّهَا الدَّاعِي إِلَى اللَّهِ عِذِ النَّاسِ بِالْقُرْآنِ وَالسُنَّةِ. Oh, you call it to Allah, then admonish the people of the Quran and Sunnah. قال الله تعالى أَوَلَمْ يَكْفِهِمْ أَنَّ أَنزَلْنَا عَلَيْكَ الْكِتَابُ يُتْلَى عَلَيْهِمْ. Is it not sufficient for them that we sent down upon you a book which is recited to them? إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَرَحْمَةً وَذِكْرَى لِقَوْمٍ يُؤْمِنُونَ. Indeed, in that is mercy and a remembrance for the people who believe. So he said, the one who is not sufficed with the Quran, nor the Sunnah, nor the narration of the Salaf, then may Allah not make him suffice. فَلَا بُدْ أَن تَكُونَ إِنَّ الْمُسْلِمْ قَنَاعَ بِالْكِتَابِ وَسُنَّةِ حَتَّى يَنْتَفِعَ بِهِمَا. So he says there's a must that one is satisfied with the Quran and Sunnah until he benefits from them. So he said if you want stories, the best stories are the stories of the Quran. And if you want an admonition, the best and most beneficial one is of the Quran. And if you want guidance, as we mentioned before, the best guidance is that of the Quran. So thus it's a must that we take from the Quran and benefit from it. And we should not be merely storytellers. We should not be merely storytellers, as well known from some of the du'at nowadays. They sit there and just tell stories all day. They add and increase. Then he says, وَكَانَ مُعَاذِ بْن جَبَلٍ رَضِيَ اللَّهُ عنْهُ يَقُولُ فِي مَجْلِسِهِ كُلَّ يَوْمٍ كَلَّمَا يُخْطِئُهُ أَنْ يَقُولُ ذَلِكَ. Now Mu'adh bin Jabal radiallahu anhu used to say in all of his sittings, and it will be rare that he would not say it, Allahu hakamun qistun. Allah is the judge and just. Halakal murtabun. Destroyed are the doubtful ones. Inna wara'akum fitanan. Yakthuru fiha al-mal. Behind you, after you is a fitna, or trials and tribulations, in which the wealth will become abundant. وَيُفْتَحُ فِيهَا الْقُرْآنَ حَتَّى يَقْرَأَ الْمُؤْمِنُ وَالْمُنَافِقُ. And the Qur'an will be opened up to the people until even the believer and the hypocrite will read it. وَالْمَرْأَةُ وَالصَّبِيُّ. And the woman will read it, and the young child will read it as well. فَيُوشِكُ قَائِلًا يَقُولُ مَا لِلنَّاسِ لَا يَتَّبِعُونِ وَقَدْ قَرَأْتُ الْقُرْآنَ. And it may come where a person will say, why is it that the people do not follow me whilst I recite the Qur'an? مَا هُمْ بِمُتَّبِعِيَّ حَتَّى أَبْتَدِعُ لَهُمْ غَيْرَهُ. They will not follow me until I innovate for them other than it. فَإِيَّاكُمْ مُبْتَدِعُ. Beware of that which is innovated. فَكُلُّ بِدْعَةٍ ضَلَالَةٍ. For every innovation is misguidance. وَإِيَّاكُمْ وَزِيغَةَ الْحَكِيمِ. And beware of the slip and misguidance of the wise one. وَإِنَّ الْمُنَافِقَ قَدْ يَقُولُ كَلِمَةَ الْحَقِّ فَتَلَقَّوْا الْحَقِّ مِمَّنْ جَاءَ بِهِ. And the hypocrite might say a statement of truth, so take the truth from those who come with it. فَإِنَّ عَلَى الْحَقِّ نُورًا. For indeed upon the truth there is a light. This narration is authentic. رواه وروى البيهقي عن عروة ابن زبير. And Al-Bayhaqi reports on Urwa ibn Zubair radiallahu anhu, أن عمر رضي الله عنه أراد أن يكتب السنن. Umar radiallahu anhu wanted to write the sunan. فاستشار الصحابة. So he seeked advice from the Sahaba. فأشاروا عليه بذلك. They said, do it. ثم استخار الله شهرا. Then he did istikhara for 1 month. ثم قال إني ذكرت قوما كانوا قبلكم كتبوا كتبا. I remember the people before you that wrote books. فأكبوا عليها وتركوا كتاب الله. They became accepting upon those books and left the book of Allah. وإني والله لا ألبس كتاب الله بشيء أبدا. And by Allah, I will not mix the book of Allah with anything. This narration is not authentic to Umar radiallahu anhu. As for Mu'adh bin Jabal, then is Abu Abdurrahman Mu'adh bin Jabal Al-Ansari, one of the great Sahaba of the Prophet ﷺ, one who was known for his vast amount of knowledge and knowing the rulings and the Qur'an and other than it. The Prophet ﷺ put him in charge of Mecca on the day of the conquering of Mecca and to teach them the religion. Then he sent him to Yemen to be a judge and a teacher. And he passed away in Ash-Sham, in Syria. And he died in the year of 18 after the Hijrah at the age of 32 years old. And it was said other than that. So he died radiallahu anhu at a very young age. And he was a scholar of the Sahaba, as the Prophet ﷺ said, that he'll come on the day of judgment and he'll be in front of the scholars to the extent of how far a rock can be thrown. So he'll be in front of the scholars on the day of judgment, and he was the most knowledgeable in regards to halal and haram. As for Allah Hakamun, then it is a name from the name of Allah, Hakam. Allah says, أَفَغَيْرَ اللَّهِ أَبْتَغِي حَكَمًا. Shall I seek a ruling other than Allah, from other than Allah? And it comes from the Sahaba that one of the Sahabi, Abi Shurayh, that he wanted, or they called him Abul Hakam. His people, they call him Abul Hakam. So the Prophet said to Inna Allah huwa al-Hakam. Allah is al-Hakam. Wa ilayhi al-Hukam. And to him returns the judgment. فَلِمَا تُكْنَا أَبَا الْحَكَمِ. Why did you take this kunya Abul Hakam? Or why are you giving this kunya Abul Hakam? So he made him change it. Al-Imam Baghi rahimahullah says that وَالْحَكَمُ هُوَ الْحَاكِمْ الَّذِي إِذَا حَكَمْ لَا يُرَدْ حُكْمَهُ. That Al-Hakam is the one who, when he makes a ruling or judges or rules something, his ruling is never rejected. And that is only specific to Allah, whose ruling is never rejected. As for mankind, they can err and they can be correct. The ruling of Allah is never rejected. And that is specific to him. وَهَذِي الصِّفَةِ لَا تُلِيقُ بِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ عَزَّ وَجَلَّ, he says. وَمِنْ أَسْمَاءِ الْحَكَمِ. So he said this is an attribute which is not befitting for other than Allah, and from the names of Allah is Al-Hakam. Qistun, meaning just. Halak al-Murtabun, meaning the doubtful ones. Inna wara'akum fitanan yakthuru fiha al-mal. Behind you there is going to be trials and tribulation, which wealth will become abundant. This is somewhat the Prophet informed us of in the future, that will happen later on. Inna likulli ummatin fitna wa fitnatu ummati mal, al-mal. That every nation has a trial and tribulation, and the trial and tribulation of my nation is wealth. So come where this is a big trial and tribulation for the ummah. As for the Qur'an opening up to the people, where it's even a hypocrite to read it, and a believer, and a woman, and a man, or a child, then the believer is known. As for the hypocrites, then there is a hypocrite is a person who outwardly shows Islam, and innerly he has kufr. He disbelieves. Now obviously this is regarding nifaq al-i'tiqadi. Because there's nifaq al-amali and nifaq al-i'tiqadi. Nifaq al-i'tiqadi means hypocrisy in one's beliefs. You outwardly show Islam but hiddenly you have kufr. As for nifaq al-amali, then it occurs from even a believer. Nifaq in one's actions, as the Prophet ﷺ said, ayatul munafiq thalath, idha wa'da akhlaf, wa idha tumina khan, that when he does, he promises you some, he breaks it. Wa idha tumina khan, you give him a trust, he breaks, he does khiyana. English word for khan again. He betrays you. He betrays you and not done it. So there's attributes that a munafiq has that are amali, and a Muslim might have them. But nifaq al-i'tiqadi, if one has that, he leaves the fold of Islam, because it is outwardly showing Islam but innerly having kufr. And the munafiqeen, they are in the lowest depths of the hellfire. Inna al-munafiqeen fi ad-dark al-asfali min an-nar. They are the lowest depths of the hellfire. Then he says that a time will come where a person says, I read the Qur'an, why do the people not follow me? I read the Qur'an, why do people not follow me? Meaning, it will come that some of the Qurra of the Qur'an, and who do not act in accordance to it, they will innovate for the people in order to become the heads of the people. And this is something well known today. Some of the Qurra, they're ignorant, but the people take them as their heads. They don't know much. All they know is reciting the Qur'an and making their voice beautiful with the Qur'an. But you find the people misled by them. And it's something which is well known, whereas you'll find some of them on YouTube now, they do like the kuffar do for their concerts. They say on YouTube, where should I come next to recite in your masjid? And you see people commenting, brother, come to this area, brother, come to... And he goes there with the money of the people just to recite in that masjid. The Quran wasn't sent off for this reason. The Quran was not sent off for this reason. So there's a time will come where the people say, why did not follow me? I read the Quran. So merely his beautiful recitation leads them to people following him. Not because he has knowledge. Or not because he's someone that is known for his knowledge. And you'll find some of those in these Quran competitions. And we've heard stories of them where he knows nothing about Islam. But just because his beautiful recitation is sitting there. And his memory is good. But he knows absolutely nothing about Islam. He might not even wake up for Salatul Fajr. So this is something which is a musibah. But you'll find that the people follow these people. And these people innovate for them. So then he says, فَإِيَّاكُمْ مُبْتَدِعْ. So Mu'adh ibn Jabal knew this will occur later on. فَإِيَّاكُمْ مُبْتَدِعْ. So beware of that which innovates. Meaning do not be misled by the recitation of the Quran and its good memorization is tajweed. Rather, be from those who follow the Sunnah. فَكُلُّ بِدْعَةٍ ضَلَالَةٍ. For every innovation misguidance. وَإِيَّاكُمْ وَزِيغَةُ الْحَكِيمِ. And beware of the misleading and slips of the wise one. Meaning, as I warn you from the innovations of the ones who read the Quran, I also warn you from the misguidance of those who are wise. Or the wise one. Because generally people get misled by wise people. Now the Shaykh, he mentions here a benefit that you'll find some people who narrate from the scholars everything. He sits there and he narrates all the statements of the scholars. And he does not do tarjih. He does not say which one's the correct stance. So the general folk, they think all the statements are accepted. Every statement mentioned here is accepted. And this is wrong. Shaykh al-Islam says, Al-Wajib, what is always upon the one who Allah opens his heart to Islam, is that if that a weak statement reaches him from the scholars, that he does not relay it, for the one who will blind follow it. But rather he remains silent from mentioning it until he knows its authenticity. And he does not accept it. For how many people narrate from the scholars that which has no reality to it? This is important. Because you'll find some of them nowadays, he's wise, and someone who people think he has knowledge, he sits there and mentions 10 different statements of the scholars, and the people think this is knowledge. No, this is not knowledge. Rather, this is weakness in knowledge. For he does not do tarjih. And I'll mention an example of one. There was a man one day, he was giving a lecture on marriage. It was around 4 hours lecture on marriage. And in that lecture, everything that came to marriage, he mentioned the scholars say this, the scholars say this, the scholars say this. And he did not mention tarjih. He mentioned all the weak stances and the strong stances. And some of the general folk, they took from this that the weak stances is permissible. Some of the weak stances regarding marriage is permissible because the Shaykh mentioned it. The Shaykh merely mentioning a statement does not mean it is correct. So it's important when you mention to the general folk statements of the people of scholar, the knowledge, you mention this one is strong and this one is weak. For those common folk, they're misled, they take anything that suits their desires. If it is a stance, they say this, the scholars say this, and it's the easiest one, I take it. But it could be the weakest of the stances. So it's important that when we mention to the people, we mention the strong stances. And if there's a stance that's weak, that has no proof, we do not mention to the people. For people did not understand correctly, they'll take that and they'll say, but you mentioned it. And they'll act in accordance to it. Then he says, وَإِنَّ الْمُنَافِقِ, the hypocrite might say a statement, which is a statement of truth. So take the truth wherever it comes from, for indeed, upon the truth there's nur, there's light. Meaning, from the justice of this religion, we take the truth from wherever it comes from. But that does not mean you sit with the wrong people. That does not mean you sit with the people of innovation, or you sit with the kuffar, or you sit with the hypocrites and take knowledge from them. Rather, it means if they say a statement of truth, we say it's a statement of truth. We accept the statement of truth, but we do not accept the individual. So it's wrong to say that I will sit with the people of innovation, the kufr and the nifaq, and take knowledge from them because they might say the statement of truth and I'll take it from them. No, that's wrong. But if they do say a statement of truth out of the blue, or it may happen that they say a statement of truth, then we accept it. For that reason, it's not correct to say Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu took knowledge from the shaitan. And this is a statement many people they mention. When they mention points like this, you could take knowledge from the people of innovation, you could take knowledge from the kuffar, you could take knowledge from the munafiqeen. Why? Because Abu Hurairah took knowledge from the shaitan. No, he did not take knowledge from the shaitan. Rather, when the shaitan informed him of reciting Ayatul Kursi, did he accept it? Or what did he do? Anyone know what he did? He went to the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and then the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam agreed and said, yes, it's correct. He did not take knowledge from the shaitan. Rather, he took knowledge from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and affirmed it. So it's not correct to use this and say it's okay to learn knowledge from everyone because Abu Hurairah took knowledge from the shaitan. A'udhu billah. Abu Hurairah did not take knowledge from the shaitan, rather he took knowledge from the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So if you hear a statement of truth, we accept it, but we did not take knowledge from them. Do not sit at their feet and take knowledge from them. So he says, then the narration of Umar al-Khattab, and we'll end with this. As for Al-Bayhaqi, because the narration reported by Al-Bayhaqi is Abu Bakr Ahmed ibn Hussein Al-Khurasani, Al-Imam Al-Hafidh. Some of them, they say he was from Afghanistan. Al-Bayhaqi rahimahullah. He was a Shafi'i madhaban, and he had many books. From those books is Shu'ab al-Iman. Shu'ab al-Iman, the one we're studying, this summarized version of it, the larger version is written by Al-Bayhaqi. The larger version is written by Al-Bayhaqi. And he died in the year 458 after the Hijrah. Urwa ibn Zubair radiallahu an is a Sahabi and son of a Sahabi, who was the son of Az-Zubair ibn Awam radiallahu an. Anyone know his relationship to Aisha? Because many times it comes the hadith that he related from Aisha. And he'll go behind the curtain and relate from Aisha. And it's not permissible for a non-mahram man to go behind the curtain and relate from a woman. So anyone know the relation between Urwa and Zubair from Aisha? Aunt maternal or paternal? Maternal aunt. She is the maternal aunt to Urwa and Zubair. So for some people who are ignorant, they'll come to you and say, but look, Urwa and Zubair took nash from Aisha. And you go behind Wara'i al-Hijab. You go behind the hijab and take nash from her. It's permissible for a man to go to nash from a woman. So if you do not know that it's his maternal aunt, you would fall into that doubt. So it's his maternal aunt, radiallahu anhuma. He was born in the beginning Khilafah of Uthman radiallahu anh, and he took much knowledge from his maternal aunt, Aisha radiallahu anha. Whereas he became a great scholar and a hafiz and one who was trustworthy and related to many hadith. And he did not enter into any part of trials and tribulations, and is considered from the fuqaha of Al-Madinah. And he died in the year 94 after the Hijrah. As for the narration of Umar, it is weak, but some of them they use narrations like this to say that it is not permissible to write other than the Qur'an. But the scholars, they mention that those narrations which are regarding not writing anything of the Qur'an, those scholars, they mention it for the reason that the people do not become preoccupied with other than the Qur'an, meaning that they leave off the Qur'an. But there's narrations, other narrations that prove to us that it's permissible to write other than the Qur'an, and write a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, or knowledge. For it comes in the narration of Abdullah ibn Umar radiallahu anh, that the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Uktub, فَوَالَّذِي نَفْسُ يَدِهِ مَا يَخْرُجْ مِنْهُ إِلَّا حَقًّا." Write, for the one whose hands my soul is in, nothing comes out of my mouth except the truth. So Abdullah ibn Amr used to write narration of the Prophet ﷺ, hadith. So there's books, like one written by Khatib al-Baghdadi, showing the different narrations, those who say it's not permissible to write other than the Qur'an, and those who say it's permissible to write other than the Qur'an. And the tarjih is that it is permissible to write other than the Qur'an, because at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there was some form of doubt that perhaps it might get mixed with the Qur'an. But when that was done and that was gone, then it is permissible after that to write other than the Qur'an. For the Prophet ﷺ did not speak except the truth, and the Sahaba used to write the Qur'an. They write other than the Qur'an. So it's permissible to write other than the Qur'an, especially books of hadith, and the scholars have consensus upon that after that. So any question before we end?